Welcome to Women in the Arena podcast, the podcast celebrating women doing extraordinary things in plain sight. I'm your host, Audra Egan, and our mission is to elevate the value, strength, and resilience each woman brings to the world. Without further delay, let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for joining me again this week on Women in the Arena podcast, where we are celebrating all of you doing extraordinary things in plain sight. This week, I am joined by an incredibly dynamic and creative woman who definitely marches to the beat of her own drum. We talk about all sorts of topics this week as she imparts wisdom upon us from her unique and clever point of view. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and thank you again for joining me. Let's start the show. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I have an amazing guest and a wonderful friend that I want to share with you today. I have with me Pam Herrmann. She is the best-selling author and expert on the subject of customer loyalty. She has a huge heart for Main Street businesses and works tirelessly to help owners get and keep their customers. Help me welcome in my friend, Pam Herrmann. Pam, thank you so much for joining me today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Audra. Pleasure to be here. And first of all, I just want to congratulate you, well, on two things. Number one, you have nailed the awesome podcast voice. Love it every time I hear your intro. I'm just like, she's got like that little NPR vibe going. Number two, on just your ability to attract some amazing guests on your show. I've loved every single episode. So keep up the great work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Okay. No.
Okay. Oh, we just blew that one out right away.
I think you're living in that adulation. You're like,
I am. That felt good first. I was like, wow. Oh, wait, I'm recording. I still have a show to do. So thank you for that adulation. And let me bring us back to center and introduce what we're talking about today, which is an important topic. And it's one that has been a theme in several of my episodes. So the discussion today is about breaking through that blood-brain barrier. So Pam, what in the world is blood-brain barrier?
Yeah, it sounds pretty gory, doesn't it?
It really does.
Audra, it's a really interesting concept that one of my mentors introduced me to. He goes, you receive information from your heart, and it takes you about a day to get that information, the thing that you just experienced, up into your head so that you can logically work through it and respond to it in an appropriate way. And he goes, and what I also know is that when you're in a heightened emotional state, you're not going to make the best decisions. I said, well, Thank you very much for that keen observation. But you know what? I feel like it just kind of blew open everything about myself that I needed to understand in order to just move through the world in a way where I could handle experiences that were unexpected. Somebody lobs a grenade into your world, or an experience happens, and you've got to figure out how to make decisions around it, how are you going to respond to it, and really try to do it in a way that doesn't, add more fuel to the fire. So the blood-brain barrier is really the connection between your brain and your heart. So, Audra, let me ask you a question. When you experience the world, do you receive it through your heart and you feel, or do you think?
Oh, initially, it's always through my heart. It's always through this emotions. It's a vibration, and I have to take a deep breath so I can get the oxygen back up to my brain so I can make a decision. But it's always through my emotion first.
Yeah, it's interesting because you and I were talking about this earlier. You and I both have the ability to walk into a space and to also feel it. Feel it at the heart level. I sometimes have to sit there and I have to analyze the space and go, why does this place not feel comfortable to me? Is it the paint color? Is it the height of the ceiling? Is it the vibe of the people? I don't know, but I love decoding the world like that. Do you ever have that experience?
I do. I actually sit back and think, okay, what's wrong? And sometimes the vibe is a good one. And I want to say, oh, what's more of that? But yes, I sit back and I try to analyze what's going on here. Who's causing this, or what's causing this weird emotional vibration that I'm experiencing right now.
Right. And what's interesting is that when I talk to my high analytic friends, and I have the husband of one of my close friends, he's a very, very high analytic. He actually works at the Los Alamos lab in New Mexico. The guy is just off the charts, brilliant. Whenever he and I are having like a social conversation, he, can you hear my dog in the background, Audra?
I can just hear the clinking of their tags.
Sorry, Piper?
Well, welcome to Recording 2020.
Welcome to Audra. So anyway, so what this particular individual does is I'm trying to have a conversation with them, and I'm a pretty lighthearted individual, and I'm making a funny statement, and he sits there and he looks and he does that interesting little tilt of the head and the quizzical look as if he's trying to understand and decode what I'm saying. And then I can see this response on his face. And so I'm adding more enthusiasm and more detail to what I'm trying to explain to him. And then he further cocks his head in the other direction and gives it more thought. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not communicating with him in his language. And so this ability to understand how people think and to pick up those social cues really, really quickly, I really credit that for my ability to work through a lot of relationship conversations pretty quickly, meet people where they are. Well, you come from the sales world, and to understand, look, this isn't about me. That's my heart speaking. Okay, he's not rejecting what you're saying. He's just trying to understand it.
so he's receiving information through his head,
yes,
and trying to process it, and then maybe it filters back down into his emotion.
Well, God willing, that's where it goes. But,
yes.
You just never know with people, and you can't really be responsible for that part of it. All you can do is be responsible for how your experiences in the world affect the way you respond to them. That's it. And then just kind of manage the expectations of the people around you. That's the other key part of life. But that's it. The blood-brain barrier is a very simple little calculation that I go through. It's very conscious level. I try to stay super present in my world, as we're all trying to do right now. Really focusing on the connections, the one-to-one, human-to-human connections right now. I think that's the gold. And I think this is what COVID and a lot of the isolation that we're experiencing right now, I think that's what a lot of people who are really doing some deep self-analysis, that's what they're thinking about. What do connections mean to me? What do relationships mean to me? And so then for me, it's really kind of carrying it into my work, into my relationships with my parents who are getting elderly, with my siblings who were disagreeing more frequently on things like my parents,
right.
And just friends feeling tense and stress, and my children trying to navigate through the world. And it's really just an amazing way just to stop and just assess.
So you're assessing, and you're literally taking a personal inventory.
I do take personal inventory, and this is why I took a really interesting, like a 5-day trip down to Cabo, and I did 5 days of meditation, which for most people that sounds torturous. Like I couldn't even imagine sitting there for 10 minutes, let alone doing a 5-day thing. But one of the things we were focusing on was that how we, as entities in this universe, are responding to the energy around us. And the whole thinking is that thoughts become things, right? And so if we are working through the world through a series of just reactions, what we want to be able to do is to really change the programming in our brain. And this got me thinking a lot about neuroplasticity and really changing my behaviors based on my thought process. And the step one in that is to think about your thoughts. You've probably heard that expression before. Just think about your thoughts. That's the first stage of self-awareness, right?
So think about your thoughts, meaning analyze what's running through your head.
Exactly. So gotcha. You're having an experience and you're responding to it, and those are thoughts. So pay attention to your thoughts. What are they telling you? Okay. So that's kind of step one. And then what you want to be able to do, especially if you're trying to change a behavior or a reaction or some sort of a physical response to a thought, like a behavioral type of thing, it's really just replacing what would be a natural reaction with a new thought. And that's what neuroplasticity is. So we can really think about how we change our thought patterns and behaviors, because actions follow thoughts, right?
Absolutely.
By starting at the start. And if you want to change a behavior or a reaction, you've got to be first aware of what it is that's going through your brain and then replace it with another thought. So here's an example. Let's move it into the workplace. Somebody says something to me. I have an immediate response to it because typically it's going to hit a trigger. My brain is trying to find a familiar anchor point. What did they say? How am I receiving it? And what does it sound like that is familiar to me?
Okay, and it's typically an emotional trigger.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's an emotional trigger, and it's just something based on past experiences that our brain has become neurologically trained to respond to. So the first thing I think about is, okay, that didn't feel right. Why did that not feel right? Was it what they said? Was it how they said it? Did it trigger something from my childhood? For me, it's a lot of it.
Are there some past experiences that this feels familiar with?
Yeah.
I'm responding.
That's
I don't know why I'm responding, but I'm responding.
That's exactly right. And so my brain now quickly goes through that inventory. And it helps me, instead of reacting and saying, hey, you can't talk to me like that, or I don't appreciate the way you said that about me in that meeting in front of all those people, blah, 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 because it hit on all of these insecurities, whatever. I don't even go there. It's just like I do self-exploration first. The first thing I do is turn inward. And instead of looking at that person and being accusatory, me feeling defensive, I turn inward. What trigger did that hit, Pam? Why did it hit a trigger? And what is the root of that trigger? Because my response is based on that trigger. So I really do this really interesting decoding. And for now, at this point, Audra, I don't even have to consciously think about it too much, although I try to, just to keep myself in check. It's just like a muscle. I just try to keep that muscle really continuing to grow, because it's healthy when you think about it.
Absolutely. So you've created this practice on, okay, something happens and I'm triggered, but you take a pause before you react, take your inventory, and then try and marry the two between your heart and your mind, and then respond in a more positive or effective way.
Yeah. And oftentimes what I have found is that, like I said before, I need typically no more than 24 hours and I'll have it sorted out. But what I do is allow myself that space, and I'll even say to the person, I'm not really ready to have a conversation with you about this. If you could just give me a little time, I'll reach out when I've got this sorted out. And I explained to them, I need time for this to kind of come up to the analytical part in my brain. So just give me a little space. And most people afford that to me. Now, the people that don't, they've got a completely different agenda. And that gives me the green light to engage fully.
Mm-hmm.
That person's not really invested in us as co-communicators. They're not interested in my well-being. They're trying to hurt me in some way. And so as soon as I could recognize that somebody was latching on and they weren't going to let go and give me that space, then I could immediately categorize that as somebody I wanted nothing to do with. And it's interesting because even in business, I've been able to define that. And I now attract people who communicate the way I do, and I detract those who know they're not going to be able to feed off of me, like a shark in the ocean. And it's a really cool law of attraction little trick that's happening now that I really love, because now I don't have to worry too much about bad people coming toward me. They just know they're not going to feed off of me, so they leave me alone.
Well, let's stay on that thought. So let us pretend, and this is probably not pretending, it's probably something that has happened to you, me, all of us. What happens when you have a pretty significant grenade lobbed at you and it rocks your world? What do you do? How do you respond? How do you react? And what's appropriate?
I can share with you a story of an example that somebody who crossed my path on the journey, and they did exactly that. They were somebody that was very interested in disrupting. And disruption is okay. I'm not a big fan of the word disruption because I think it gets overused a bit. But anyway, that was this individual's MO, and just wanted to blow stuff up and wasn't really thinking too much about the debris field that was behind them. And
so just for the sake of blowing up, just blowing stuff up just for the very act of doing it. No purpose, just to do it.
That's correct.
Okay.
To the point that we had some mutual friends in business that I reached out to them just to do a little bit of a pulse check and say, I didn't want to share the experience. I really didn't want to color what they were sharing, what I wanted them to share with me. I really wanted to say, what was your work experience with this individual? And were there any issues? What's the best way to work with them? Again, I was kind of turning inward. Maybe it's me. And not from the perspective of, oh, I'm wrong and they're right, but it was really kind of a self-analysis. What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? Or how do I need to adapt in order to work with this individual in a way that is productive, right, and collaborative? And neither of the two people that I talked to had any real issues. They gave me some good advice, and I brought that forward into the relationship with this individual. And what was interesting is that it didn't work. It actually inflamed the situation.
Wow. So you came into the situation with a positive outlook and said, hey, I'm just trying to work with you and help meet me halfway so we can get some work done.
100%.
That it backfired.
That's exactly how I framed it, Audra. I said, here's what I know about myself so that you get the highest level of productivity from me, the highest level of creativity from me, collaboration, all of the good that we look for with business associates. I'm like, you want me to perform at that level? Totally doable. Here's how me and another previous boss of mine used to work together. And we were a machine. The things that we were creating were really quite extraordinary. We were getting a lot done, and it was all really, really positive. And I'm seeking to hit the reset button with us. It just didn't work with this individual. And it was interesting, Audra, because it was at that point in time when a huge shift happened inside of me, where I stopped doing the self-assessment and saying, maybe it's something I'm doing. And I had the validation that it was about that individual, not about me. Because I came to the table, not even 50%, I came 100% and said, here's how I'd like to work with you. And they were not receiving of it. Now, some people would say they were afraid. The root of it was fear or control or any of these negative emotions. I don't care. It's not my business what is going on with that person's psychology. I can't control that part of it. All I can do is control my part of it, right? Right. So for me, I was absolved of any further self-reflection. I've done my part with this relationship, and I am now done. I literally said, I actually called up HR, and I said, this is what happened. This individual is not somebody that I can collaborate with. And if this is what this company represents, then I'm probably not a great fit for this organization. It's probably not just a great culture fit for me, because I do believe in respect of the individual, dignity, positive communication, collaborative, all those things that we talk about in business that makes for great working environments. And so anyway, that was the action that I took. Now, for many of you, you were like, damn, like that girl just, put her balls on the table, as they say.
But you kind of had to. I mean, because let me rephrase what just happened. You did your personal inventory. You thought, okay, I'm going to readjust because maybe he doesn't receive or she doesn't receive information in the same manner that I do. So I will try and work with this individual in the way that this individual receives information. You went 100% into it. That individual rejected it, which means now that individual is rejecting any sort of attempts at a positive, constructive relationship. And that means you have to make a different decision.
100%. Yeah, because, and honestly, I'm really sharing an extreme example. Most of us don't come across people like this very often. But when we do, you have to be prepared for it. And sometimes it can come in really subtle, milder forms. But the process and the response to it is pretty much the same. What are your personal values? Know the value that you bring to the organization. Know the best way to get the most out of you in terms of collaboration. Be super clear on that. Know what talents that you have. Know your personal power. And then stand behind it. And I think the values is the other big part of it too, because for me, if somebody says, you know what, just put your head down and get the work done, BS response. That just was an indication that we were never going to be successful collaborating together. And my success was hinging on this person. I was reporting to them. So I'm like, it's not going to work. So the cautionary tale especially for your audience who may be in their early stages of their career, is that even people who are a year or two out of school, they know their value. They know what they're really good at, and at least they should have that personal inventory of what that growing value is to the organization. Because what we know is you're going to make more money when you add more value. So you've always got to have your finger on the pulse of the things that you're good at and what you're developing and what your aim is with your professional development. So going back to what I was saying to my team members who were earlier in their stage, is like, look, earlier in their career is, look, this is going to happen in your career. It's probably going to happen more than once. Nobody gets to mess with your personal power. Nobody. That's not an invitation. That's on the table.
So you were protecting not only your personal power, your personal brand. And so you had no other choice. But in order to protect that, you had to act boldly, as you should.
You have to act boldly, and it was at the risk of everything. So, and when I mean everything, I've been told by, therapists, Pam, your needle, like when you're happy, everything's great. And when things start to get a little sideways in your world, your needle goes hard over and you think you're going to lose your job and your house and you're going to be living under a bridge. So there is some place in between those two. And don't respond psychologically in such an extreme way. So yeah, that's exactly what I was talking myself through, which is that, look, if I go to HR and I report this, I could be at risk of losing my job just through that process. As a matter of fact, I think I even said to the attorney who was interviewing me, I said, okay, let me just assess here. Is the horse out of the barn on this thing, or are we still just exploring this? And she said, no, the horse is out of the barn. All right. Well, let's go then. And I thought to myself, well, damn the torpedoes. I have to, because if this is accepted behavior, then the other executive leadership of this company should be made aware. At least the head honcho should be aware. And if that's okay, then it's okay. And that means I need to go find another home for my talents.
Because you should be in an organization or a group or a relationship that acknowledges what you bring to the table.
Yeah, 100%.
And values what you bring to the table. So this is an extreme example, and we recognize that. But the example here is to not be silent when your value is being pushed, when your value is not being recognized, when your value is just simply being ignored. You have to, as frightening as sometimes it can be, you have to stand firm in what you know to be true. And that is that you are valuable. Regardless of where you're at, regardless of what the situation is, you have value. And when push comes to shove, there are some times that you have to act boldly, if for no other reason that you can sit firmly in your beliefs, you can be true to that personal inventory, and you can live to conquer another day. I think that is an overarching theme to why this is important that we discuss this.
All right. Well, and as my brother would say, is, hey, Pam, that's great for you and Gandhi and about 3 other people on the planet can handle that, because it sounds very, I don't know, it sounds a little bourgeois. It's like a luxury that a lot of people feel like they can't afford to walk away from a job. But I'll share with you and with the audience. I've had to reinvent myself multiple times in my career, especially because I've been a consultant and gigs fall through and partnerships fall through. And, you'll lay on the sofa and eat a pint of ice cream and you'll go through a box of tissues and you'll think it's the end of the world. Okay, maybe nobody goes through that like I do.
Oh, no, I'm raising my hand. I've reinvented myself many, many, many times.
Yeah. So what I do once I allow myself that space, and then I go through a little bit of a process, and I'd love to share it with you guys because it's really helped me kind of put myself back in my personal power, which is the name of the game. Like I'm not here on this journey of the world for no reason. I'm here for some reason. I don't know exactly what, but anyway. So one of the things that I do, Audra, is I start by asking myself a question, and I literally get out like the legal pad and the pen, and I sit on the sofa between big scoops of ice cream, and I say, what do you love to do? And I make a list of all the things, the parts of my work that I love to do, things that put me in flow states. Like the time of day disappears. I forget to eat, just things that I get so immersed in it that.
So hold on. You actually make a list of the things that you love to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to admit this out loud. I've never done that before.
Oh my gosh, Audra, you should absolutely do this.
Oh my gosh. I've never done that. I've never done that exercise before. And it's kind of like one of those, I'm having this aha moment, like, duh, why haven't I done that before?
Right. Especially at this stage in your career.
Correct.
You've got a lot of miles.
I do. I look great for my age. Yes, I do.
Not horrible. You're beautiful, Audra. You don't go a lot of miles. You just have a lot of miles.
Correct.
So what do I love to do? And I write down at least 10 things. And then the next thing I write down is, what are you great at? And I mean great.
Wow. Okay, Pam, I am going to do this exercise because, my mind just went.
Yeah.
Because I've not done that either.
Okay. And then the third part is, who do you love to work with? Like, what are the attributes? Not particular. Well, you could pick an individual and say people like that. Or you could just pick the attributes of that person. I like people who are really clever, who move fast on decisions. I love people who are creative, people who plus one ideas. They know how to get in a room and a whiteboard. They're listeners. They're curious. They ask why. I mean, that's my short list of the types of personalities or the attributes of a personality that I really thrive in, and they're really going to get the best out of me when we can get in a room together.
I like people that bring good energy into whatever they're doing, even if they're like, I'm not entirely sure how we're going to get this done, but I'm all in and let's do it together. I love that energy.
Love that.
I respond to that.
Can-do attitude.
Yes.
So then the other thing that I've done recently, and I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but there's a young girl that lives next door. She's 15, and she was really kind of struggling with the world and her place in the world. And I said, have you ever written like your birthright? And she goes, I don't even know what that is. I said, yeah, I didn't either. And then a friend was telling me about this. And so Audra, have you ever written out your birthright?
No, I'm not even sure if I understand what you mean.
This is something, especially when I'm in low points, this is something that I read to myself every morning and every night. I keep it in my nightstand. So here's what a birthright is. It's a series of I am statements that you believe are your God-given right. Excellent. But on this planet, I am, and it's everything to do about your femininity, if you're a mother, if you're an empowerer, you're a listener. And so I start all of these sentences with, I am. And I've got probably 25 on this list. I'm divine. I'm a friend. I'm particularly a friend in need. I'm not an everyday friend, but I'm a friend when you're in need. I'm a daughter that's always going to be there. These are just things that I consider my birthright. And it's also about respect. Like, I deserve to be talked to in a certain way. I deserve dignity. We all do. But these are important.
What a powerful thing that, first of all, I've never heard of doing it. Second of all, I'm thinking, of course, well, this is so obvious. Why have I not done this before? And why haven't I never heard of it? But reading that every day,
well,
that frames your whole day.
It really does. And here's where it starts to, again, getting back to the brain science. Your brain recognizes your voice, and you can't just read the words on the paper. You have to say it out loud. It goes in through the auditory, and your brain receives it in a different part of the brain. And you say these things over and over and over, and it just organically lifts you. And when you are repeating these things to yourself every morning and every night, after a while, you just don't need it anymore, because everything shifts around you. You really start to step into it.
Wow. I can imagine this, and I can't wait to try this. While I think that, I'm very fortunate and I have a pretty good life, you can always do things better. You can always create something better. You can always add more positivity into the world. And I can't wait to try this, because who knows what'll happen by doing this, because it definitely, if you shift your brain and you shift your thoughts, like you said in the beginning, thoughts are things. And this is definitely a mind shift. I can't wait to see what it creates.
It's infinite.
Wow.
But as my brother would say, me, Gandhi, and 3 others. I'm just kidding.
Okay, now there's 4 others, because I'm going to do this. So you, Gandhi, and me.
Well, it's worked for me. And I mean, here's the thing. It's just like, look, we all have galvanizing moments in our life. Things happen. Most of them are really, really good, and some of them are really crappy. And it's really those crappy experiences that kind of come out of left field. We weren't expecting them. Somebody disappoints us. We get hurt. I don't know. It's just a myriad of different things that can throw us off our game. There's you've got to get your feet firmly planted, and these are the tools that I use in order to do that. I mean, it helps me.
And and if there was ever a time that we needed tools to respond to things that are out of our control, this is it. If 2020 has taught us nothing, it's that we are completely out of control. And the only thing that we are in control of is our thoughts and how we respond to the things that are happening to us.
That's exactly right. And it's kind of funny, Audra, like listen, I got my share of isms just like everybody else. I've never had anxiety before until it was like May. Like, we were in the thick of things with COVID, and I was home, and it was scary. And my daughter's a nurse, so I was worried about her. My son was a senior in high school. I'm worried about him going to all these graduation parties, and worried about just being alone. And all of those things really started compounding. And for the first time in my life, I was waking up in the morning feeling like an elephant was sitting on my chest, and I was experiencing anxiety. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like. And it was one of those things where I had to consciously think about breathing in a new way. I had to consciously think about moving through my day in a new way. I had to control my thinking because it was going crazy, uncontrolled. And so, I'm not saying I'm an expert at thinking. I have situations that come up, and these are some of the tools that I just use to walk myself back.
Well, Pam, thank you for giving us these tools. That was one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today, is giving us these tools and being able to respond in appropriate ways, and marrying the two between the blood-brain barrier. I think it's incredibly helpful, and you can use this in any sort of situation, whether it be professional, personal, situational. These are all going to be very helpful. And thank you for walking us through this so we can learn a little bit more about to respond in a more positive way.
My pleasure, Audra.
I appreciate that so much. And this is typically where I ask you my questions of this little test that I've created, but you all have been studying. So I have changed up my questions a little bit. So how do you like that? So
I'm nervous. I'm not a good test taker, Audra.
Are you having test anxiety?
A little bit, but that's okay. Well, I'm here with friends, so they won't judge me too much, right?
No, they will not judge you. This is a judge-free zone. All are welcome. So here's my first question. What book do you suggest everyone to read?
Oh, this is a book I mail to everyone, especially my friends who are mothers. Gifts from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh.
Gifts.
Heard of it, Audra? Maybe I should mail it.
I have not. I have not heard of this book.
Beautiful. Well written. It's lovely. Check it out.
So Gifts of the Sea. So I'm going to put that on my list. Second question. What's your superpower?
Listening.
Listening. So how does your superpower serve you?
When you think about it, a lot of people don't feel heard. So let's say, okay, this is a really bad example because nobody's really socializing too much these days, but how much time do we have? Can I give you a quick story, Audra?
Give me a quick story. This is my show. We can do whatever we want.
My show, man. So I went into a barbecue. It was Labor Day many years ago, and I had one objective. I wanted to have a quick conversation, like 5 or 10 minutes with each person. I only knew 3 of like the 25 people. So target rich environment. That was my goal. I wanted to just test out this little idea of asking kind of some questions just to better understand them and what they were up to and just listen. So a really interesting thing happened where I made that goal. I talked with everybody. I had some amazing conversations. I had some people saying to me, oh my God, I can't believe I'm telling you this. Like, I've never told anybody this. Like 3 people. So it was amazing. I was walking back to my car after the barbecue and I was feeling a little peevish, a little agitated about the situation. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, you just met all these really cool people. You learned all about them. And it occurred to me in that moment, nobody reciprocated the questions back to me. Nobody was curious about me. And in that very moment, I got this divine download that just kind of shot in through my brain that said, look how hungry people are to be heard. And if you really want to serve people in conversations and with having deeper level connections with people, you got to get your ego out of the way, like death of ego, have it be all about them and be sincere and authentic with that. And when you master that, then you're going to experience some really, really great relationships and experiences with people, even complete strangers standing next to you in a grocery line, for example. So Audrey, I share that story because when you just kind of don't worry too much about how you're going to respond to what somebody's saying or how you're going to add to it. Just listen to them. They're so hungry to be heard. So that's my little superpower.
That's a profound superpower because you're right. Not enough people are feeling like they're being heard, which then means that they don't feel like they matter.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Boom. You got it.
So this is kind of in the same vein. So my last question is, what do you do every single day to change the world?
Oh, no. That's a really tough one. Oh, you know what I'm doing right now? Every single day to change the world is I'm volunteering my time to help people get the opportunity to vote. That's what I'm helping to change the world. I'm volunteering to help people just get registered. I don't care what you vote for. Well, I do, but I don't care what you vote for. Just have the right to vote and get people, the opportunity to their right to vote. That's it.
That's a huge thing to help change the world.
Everybody vote, please.
If everybody votes, the world changes.
It does.
100%. Well, before I let you run, and I have loved every second with you.
Did I pass the test, Audra? I'm feeling better now. I have a cold sweat.
You did. No, you're all good. But I'll send you ice cream so it makes you feel better.
Thank you.
This is last opportunity to make a last statement to the audience. Just a message that will mean something to you, but you want to leave with them?
I just want to say the world needs you, not some iteration of you that's a copycat of somebody else. They want you, the authentic you. Show up, tell great stories, pay attention to your life. Every day there's a story in there. And they're fun stories. It's you. So just show up, authentic you.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder.
Just like you're doing, Audra. You're showing up as the authentic you. I'm really proud of you.
Yes. This is definitely all me. The mistakes, the bloopers, and the great things. This is definitely all me. So, Pam, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting the audience. This has been invaluable and very helpful and insightful. I am going to go do the homework that you just gave me today. And I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Audra.
So thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you all next time. And that's a wrap. Thank you all so much for being here. I can never give you enough gratitude, because without all of you, none of this is possible. I am still always in awe that my guests are volunteering to be so bold in their vulnerability. So thank you for continuing to do that. And to my audience isn't the right word to describe you. So to you, I thank you. You are a community. So thank you for being a part of this community, and thank you for helping to nurture it and make it grow. And of course, I have this incredible team behind me that helps me produce this every single week. For Savannah, Alan, Jessica, Tina, Tisha, and my son, Gavin, thank you so much for believing in me, believing in my mission, and continuing to help grow the Women in the Arena podcast. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.
This is just the beginning.
That's our show. I am so grateful for each and every one of you and your unwavering support and your continued belief in this movement that has become much bigger than me, much bigger than just a podcast. It has become this forward momentum that we are all doing together. If you are ready, or you know somebody that is ready to tell your story and share your value with the world, please connect with me. You can reach me at audra@womeninthearena.net. I am so honored and thankful that you will share your story with me, and I'll make sure that it is well taken care of. I will never stop thanking each and every one of you, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next week as we share another woman's story and we celebrate her doing extraordinary things in plain sight. We'll see you next time.